to you about Macmillan Bookshelf. This is actually a 4-level series. I read a few from each of the levels, and I found that basically it's a good series that is helpful for getting from one level to another, what we call stepping stone series. And that's basically what series are good for. The student starts with the elementary level, they slowly progress through all the elementary books, and then they move on to a higher level. And the levels are not that different in difficulty, so the transition is easy. The nice thing about these is that each level has various genres like ghost stories and adventure stories and detective stories and simple narrations or drama. The writing is interesting, the plots are pretty easy to follow, and the writing in each level itself gets a little bit harder from book to book. The nice thing about each of these books in the series is it has an introduction, a quick explanation of what the story will be about, has the story with some pictures. This is the elementary level, so there are a little bit more pictures than the other levels. And at the end, there are exercises and a glossary to help you with the vocabulary. Another nice thing is at the end of each book there is a explanation of the grammar of each level. For example, level 1 is mainly simple and compound sentences, beginning to use more complex sentences, but with limited use of subclause, etc., etc. So as you can see, they gave a lot of serious thought to what should go in each of these levels. One thing that I did find a little difficult was this is actually a British series. The material that they talk about is it's not the same as what Americans give to American children. It's a little bit more serious. For example, this elementary book called Fish and Chips and Other Adventures is about a man who is struggling to feed his family. It's a little bit of a serious topic. Another elementary book, this one is Kidnapped in the Outback, which is obviously about kidnapping in Australia. Where is Paula? Missing person or kidnapped person, missing person book. So the topics of the stories are a little bit more serious than I would say Americans write for younger students in the elementary ESL level, but every culture is different and every culture believes different things are accessible to different students. So if you have any mature students who are in the elementary level in their reading, this is a good series for them to pick up. So any adults who are starting out and are in the elementary need a book that's the right level but are interested in maybe deeper subjects, this may be a good series for them. If you have some older kids who are struggling with their reading, need something a little more interesting, a little more advanced, but their level is not quite to their maturity level, then this is a great series to pick for them. And as the books progressively get more difficult, all the material is still at the same high level, talking about serious things. Well, let me give you an example of the reading. This is Fish and Chips and Other Adventures. Jim worked in a factory in the north of England. One day, the factory closed and he lost his job. He did not have any money, but he still had a hungry family. His friend Tom was lucky. He had a supermarket. It was very busy. Everybody bought food there. So that's the elementary level. Here is lower intermediate. This is from The Professor is Missing. The professor stood up. He was a short man in his early 60s with gray hair, and he was going bald. He had a kind, gentle face with green eyes. He was a bachelor who lived in the suburbs of Oxford. His house was quite big. Mrs. Green had 2 rooms upstairs and looked after the house for both of them, as well as cooking all the meals. Mrs. Green was a widow without any children. She liked looking after the professor. Anyway, she didn't have any other home. She especially loved the garden, which was full of flowers and trees. Mrs. Green loved gardening. So you can see the sentences are a little longer. There's more subclauses, commas, and a little bit more difficult, but not terribly more difficult. Now let me read you one short part from, this is intermediate. Peter took no notice of the plane at first. It sounded far away, like the buzzing of an insect. Besides, he was too busy putting his hideout in order. He was also feeling very happy. In fact, this was the first time he had felt happy for, how long? Weeks? Months? Certainly since he had come to England last autumn, and that was several months ago. But what was this hideout of his? Several months before, a tree had fallen down during a great storm. It was a huge oak tree, probably hundreds of years old. It didn't fall completely to the ground because other trees were in the way, but most of its roots had come out of the ground, leaving an enormous hole, a sort of cave. This was Peter's hideout, which he was now putting in order. It was going to be his home for the next few weeks, he hoped. As you can see, there's a picture of a map to his hideout. The sentences are just a little bit longer. It's supposed to give you the feeling of slowly progressing into more and more difficult language. So I highly recommend this series, especially for adult readers. The exercises include comprehension questions. The glossary is an English to English sort of dictionary. And you can see the glossary gets larger as the books get harder. So you are expected to know more and more words, which is how we progress through each level.